Hello everybody, welcome to Stonx Music. My name's Ollie and today we're going to be having a look at the built-in amp VST in Ableton in today's deep dive session. Let's go! So what exactly is the amp plugin? Well, what better place to start than the Ableton manual? So let's see what Ableton themselves have to say about it. Amp. Amp is an effect that emulates the sound and character of 7 classic guitar amplifiers. Developed in collaboration with Softube, Amp uses physical modelling technologies to provide a range of authentic and usable amplified tones, with a simple and consistent set of controls. There are 7 amp modes to choose from. Clean is based on Brilliant, channel of a classic amp from the 60s. This amp was widely used by guitarists of the British Invasion. Oi oi. Boost is based on the tremolo channel of the same amp and is great for edgy rock riffs. Blues is based on a 70s era guitar amp with a bright character. This classic amp is popular with country, rock and blues guitarists. Rock is modelled after a classic 45 watt amp from the 60s. This is perhaps the best known rock amp of all time. Lead is based on the modern channel of a high gain amp popular with metal guitarists. Heavy is based on the vintage channel of the same amp and is also ideal for metal and grunge sounds. Bass is modelled after a rare PA from the 70s, which has become popular with bass players due to its strong low end and fuzz at high volumes. Although the real world version of these amps all have unique parameters, Live's amp effect uses the same set of controls for each model. This makes it very easy to quickly change the overall character of your sound without having to make numerous adjustments. That's a good point to use, and that's a technique that we use quite often. Just that quick one button. Gain adjusts the level of the input to the preamplifier, whilst volume adjusts the output stage of the power amplifier. So if you guys know anything about hardware, or if you've used any hardware, it's the same thing. Your preamp volume is volume going in, and your output volume is the affected volume coming out. Although gain and volume work together to determine amp's overall level, gain is the primary control for the distortion amount. Higher gain settings result in a more distorted sound. So I love my metal tones, and that's one of the things that we do quite often is boost the gain before the amp. So we'll go guitar into a pedal to boost the gain into the amp, then into the distorted channel of the amp. So having that gain adjust before the distortion, you can really push into the distortion to get more distortion. Right, where were we? Gain is the primary control of the distortion amount. Higher gain settings result in a more distorted sound. When using the blues, heavy and bass models, high volume levels can also add considerable distortion. So literally, boosting the volume in is going to give you more distortion. The bass, middle and treble knobs are EQ controls that adjust the timbre of the sound, as in a real-world amplifier. This is quite interesting though. Amp's EQ parameters interact with each other and with the rest of the amp's parameters in a non-linear and sometimes unpredictable way. For example, increasing EQ levels can in some cases also increase the amount of distortion. Presence is an additional tone control for mid-high frequencies in the power amp stage. Its influence on the sound varies considerably depending on the amp model, but can add or subtract edge or crispness. The output switch toggles between mono and stereo, dual processing. Note that dual mode amp uses twice as much CPU. It does just split the signal and do it twice. And the wet-dry control adjusts the balance between the processed and dry signals. So we went over quite a lot there that's quite interesting. These 3, bass, middle and treble, it admits here that they are non-linear and sometimes unpredictable. So, because amp is modelled on real-world analog sounds, its behaviour can sometimes be difficult to predict. Here are some tips on getting the most out of amp. So knowing that this isn't just a 3-band EQ, it's not just going to boost or cut. If you cut the mids, you're going to potentially be increasing the bass, or if you boost the mids, you're definitely going to be increasing the distortion amount. Gives us some fun ideas to mess with, to kind of push what we can do for this. So, guitar amps are designed to be used with accompanying speaker cabinets. For this reason, amp comes with a companion effect called cabinet, which is designed to be used after amp in a device chain. If you're looking for authenticity, we recommend this signal flow, but you can also achieve interesting and exotic sounds by using amp and cabinet independently. So I would recommend, if you want an authentic sound, you go and buy a decent amp sim. And there's plenty out there. The IK Amplitude one, what's the one that everyone uses at the moment? Positive Grid, the bias, that's shit hot. If you've just got this and this is all you're using, you can get good effects. And I use it all the time as an effect. But if you're looking for authenticity, this will get you there. I wouldn't say it's the easiest way to go. So, this is one thing I love about reading the manual. It just says fucking crazy shit. Electricity. What? So let's see. What the fuck? What? Let's see what they're saying about electricity. The various circuits in guitar amps work with a continuous and fixed amount of electricity. Yeah? For this reason, turning up a particular parameter may inadvertently decrease the amount of available energy somewhere else in the amp. So this is actually, because they have modelled on old amps, they've built in these kind of old problems or sounds or issues that you don't get nowadays with digital amp modelling. This is particularly noticeable in the EQ controls. For example, turning up treble can reduce the level of bass and mid-range frequencies. You may find that you need to carefully adjust a number of seemingly unrelated parameters to get the results you want. What? I mean, I love it. Great. Nice one. But it totally makes sense if you're out there trying to use amp and you're not, it doesn't work like how you'd imagine it would. Well, if you read the fucking manual, you'd know that it doesn't actually work like you'd think it would. It's seemingly unrelated parameters may get the results you want. And then at the end here, more than guitars. While amp and cabinet sound great with the guitars, you can get very interesting results by feeding them with drums, synthesizers, or other sound sources. For example, try using amp with operator or analog to add analog grit to your digital sounds. Right, and we're back. That was quite a fun little experiment, actually, and I'm going to include this project file in the video for you. Check the description. I just used my sub bass. Now, this is just all inbuilt Ableton, so if you've got Suite, you need operator, amp, auto filter, multiband. You can check this out. I'm not going to talk about that now. This will be in the description. I took this bass, chucked span on it so we could have a good look. Foxengo span, I'll put the link in description, free spectrum analyzer. So there's our clean sub, and then I chucked amp on it and ran through each clean, boost, bass, blues, rock, lead, heavy and bass, and I started with all these in the center and I cranked the gain up because it's all about cranking gain up, right? So let's have a little look at our results. So we can see here sub clean, which is just our sub. We've got, I'm playing a G. G is just a good note for subs. So you can see our big hump here and a little harmonic overtone there, and then another little one teetering off there. So, sub amp on clean. We can see straight away, and they're not lined up properly, so there's a little jump, sorry. But you can see, what's that, minus 30 is where our fundamental's hitting. There's a little boost on the fundamental there. Minus 30 dB. But this second fundamental's getting a nice smack with that clean. So I didn't really notice much audible difference. We'll just have another quick run through here. Clean. Oh, turn that off, sorry. So it gives it a bit more of a kick. It accentuates that second fundamental, which is the donk. And I'd probably be EQing that out to make room for my kick drum, or my kick drum would be sitting around 100 maybe. So that's not too bad actually. That's kind of interesting. With it boosted, yeah, that's definitely going to interfere with some stuff there. So that's one to be aware of. The next setting was boost. Bam! Here we go. Here's some frequencies. So you can see that second fundamental now has been whacked up way higher than the sub. So at this point, this isn't a sub bass anymore. This is a main bass, I'd call it, which would need a good bit of free EQ and fixing. So let's go to boost, have a quick look. It's a clean sub. So that gives us some great frequencies to start messing around with, putting in our filters and stuff like that. And that's quite clean as well, that boost, as you can see. It tapers down quite nicely. It's still mainly a bass, and the harmonics taper off nicely. Next up we had the blues, and again that's quite a nice one really. I'd actually say that's nicer than boost. It's kept our sub as the main fundamental, and it has a nice ramp down. So let's just compare the two. See how boost is really knocking up that 150. So let's listen to this blues one quick. That's nice. That's really usable in my opinion. Chuck an auto filter on here. I'll do it neuroscience style, I suppose, really. Grab a glue compressor. Whackity, whackity. Not that much. Nice. That's nice. So next up, that's the blues one. I'd rate that so far on our list as the cleanest, nicest for sub bass anyway, what I'm testing it on. Next you got our rock. So you can see this is doing some crazy shit. We've got loads and loads of harmonics which are almost right up at that fundamental, keeping our sub bass high, which is nice. I think it's actually boosted it quite a bit from -30 up to -24. So yeah, it's a good 6 dB that it's boosted our actual sub fundamental, and then pretty straightforward right across the mids there, and a sharp curve off at the top, and then some spiky frequencies. Bearing in mind this is just everything stuck in the middle here, so you could boost that treble up if you wanted. So let's check out this rock one. That's got some real nice high end. Boost that. Boost the treble up a bit. Oh, so that presence really knocks that double up to the top. Then again, that's a real nice starting point for all those harmonics you've created to start moving around. Let's knock these guys back to the middle. Over to lead. Let's see the difference here. That's a nice scoop to it. You can see it's not done anywhere near as much in our sub region. If anything, I think it might have ducked it originally. What? Yeah, our -30 down to -36. So it's actually taken our main sub fundamental down by 6 dB. Raised our second fundamental by a shit ton actually, like the other ones have, and then a big mid scoop. This is called lead, so you'd expect it to boost those high frequencies. Let's have a little listen, see what we got. Over across the lead. Oh, that brick walls it at the top here. I've seen Mr. Bill do this a few times with OTT, just smashing the high end. Gives you lots of frequencies to work with. I'll just grab an auto filter again. It's what I always do. OSR for a bit of distortion, bit of drive. And that's so much of what people are trying to do with FM synthesis and serum and stuff. It can be achieved with a big old sine wave and moving this stuff around. If I move span to the other side, you can kind of see what's going on. And obviously if I turn amp off, nothing. So remove that filter again. Boom. Last two to go. We've got heavy. I don't know, heavy. Again, that's quite a nice one. It keeps our sub as the fundamental. Boost that up by 6 dB again. That second fundamentals come right up as well. Oh no, heavy, sorry. But we've got that nice slope off, which is, I think, ideal. You don't want to go ham on this stuff right from the get-go. So I mean, if I was using this in a track, I'd actually be pulling this dry wet down and stacking them up. I've got a little treat I'll show you in a sec where I've actually done this. Heavy, let's have a quick listen then. That's got a whole different timbre, whole different kind of feel to it. That presence gives it a it's like also almost throaty feel to it. That is one I would have a lot of fun. I might as well leave this filter here, to be honest. Next episode's going to be a fun one. Yeah, nice. And lastly, bass. What we got here? Oh, that actually gave me an itchy ear. Oh, I don't know how that did. Right, bass is the last one. Ooh, 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 what we got? That has rammed our fundamental right up to minus 21. No, just over minus 24, minus 22, 23 somewhere. And our second fundamental's right up there at minus 27 with a nice slope off. So this is, obviously it's the bass one, it's meant for bass, but this just looks like it might be a good shout anyway on a sub basses just to bring them out. So let's see what it sounds like. Bring the presence back. Now for me, that's a great candidate to bring this dry wet down. I mean, even less than that maybe. So now you got the difference of your plain sub, which I can barely hear in these guys. That nice bit of raspy high end. Bearing in mind, I mean, I've not spoken about this on this video, but in other videos, if this was to be a sub bass, I would recommend not doing this. I use this as my sub bass, clean, but for making all those extra sounds on top. So let's have a quick look at what I've made over here for you guys, and I'll include this in the description, in the project file. So we have an operator here, which is, let me unfreeze it. It is a pure sine. Pure sine, and that one's off, and it's just a bit of FM. I did not spend any time or effort doing this. I just turned these knobs, and with the attack I bring it so it gently comes in. So let me turn the amps off. This is what we've got. It's not that interesting really. And then we've got these 3 amps, and like I said earlier, the dry ret really low. You just want to be slowly adding these harmonics in. Auto filter at the end, cutting out the sub because I'm replacing the sub up here with my pure sub channel. And then also here we've got the dry and the distorted. So the dry version is just the distorted version is. So let's listen to this whole thing together. Actually, so let me just continue. I made this, froze it, pulled it out into this channel. As you can see, that's the same as that. And then added another, and this is one of James's favourites, and I'm always fucking chasing these out of our tracks, but it sounds so good. Screamer plugin, so if you go to your amps, it's down at the bottom here, Screamer. It's on the heavy setting, so we know what that does with all the frequencies. Dry wet 100%. Now, I would usually start backing this off when it comes into a mix, but for the sake of showing you how fat this thing is, check this out. That is a pretty fat bass sound in my opinion, and it just comes from, like the manual said, operator and a couple of amps. So yeah, download this project file in the description if you want to reverse engineer what I've done and had a little look at these patches. You've got my sub bass patch here and this nasty instrument made with a couple of amps. And I definitely implore you guys to try out the different settings and really have a mess around with the amp and see what you guys can do. It is a great VST, comes with Ableton, and it just gives you all that harmonic content that you want and need and you deserve. So thanks for tuning in, guys. This has been the Ableton deep dive session on amp, and next week we're going to be having a look at Auto Filter, which is one of my top used plugins for carving away at sounds and real getting that that neuro movement. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.